Hi, welcome to James Miller Lifeology, where you learn to simplify and transform your spirit, mind, and body. My name is James Miller. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and a composer. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Let's get started. I wanted to take just a quick moment to thank you all who continually support and listen to James Miller Lifeology. I have been so blessed and honored by your continual support. I wanted to make sure that you don't miss out on anything exciting that's happening over here. So make sure you sign up for my free newsletter at jamesmillerlifeology.com. I have a great show for you today. I'm going to help you focus on life's journey instead of only focusing on the destination. I'll also be interviewing business expert and marketing strategist Ann Havenwood, who shares her personal story of success and how her new podcast, The Win, is giving her listeners the encouragement and confidence to find their own path. I have some exciting news. Did you know that I'm on the radio 3 times a week? You may hear me on the same station on Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m., Fridays at 9:30 a.m., and Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. You may also hear me anytime on iHeartRadio as well as on all the other major podcasting platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and many others. Simply search for the show name, James Miller Lifeology. Frank Lloyd Wright was one of the greatest and most influential architects of the 20th century. As a boy, he spent a lot of time at his uncle's farm. It was there that he had one of the most formative experiences of his life. He was 9 years old, it was a winter's day, and he and his uncle had just walked across a snow-covered field. Frank's uncle stopped the young boy and pointed to the tracks they had left in the snow. Frank's meandered all over the place, while his uncle's went in a straight line from start to finish. "Notice how your tracks wander aimlessly from the fence to the cattle to the woods and back again," his uncle said. "And see how my tracks aim directly to my goal. There is an important lesson in that, son." Years later, the world-famous architect pointed to the important lesson he learned that day, but it was not the lesson his uncle intended him to learn. "I determined right then," said Frank Lloyd Wright, "not to miss most things in life as my uncle had. It's about the journey, not the destination." The destination or the journey? When we were younger, we would go on long road trips and we would always ask our parents, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" And when we were younger, the journey itself was one of the longest times in our young life because we just wanted to get there. The reality is, as we get older, it's kind of the same thing. But if we focus specifically on the end result, once we finally get there, we're not going to realize all the lessons we've learned along the way. If I was granted a wish, and that wish was to be the most successful business person ever, and I woke up the next day and I was very successful, that would be amazing. But what happens then when I would have to make certain decisions about how my business and company would go? Well, if I was automatically put in that new position, I wouldn't have any background or data to really understand what is a right decision and what's a wrong decision. I would do many things that would eventually cause my business to crumble. It's a really good analogy to think about because if we get so caught up in the end result, but don't really pay attention to the lessons we learn along the way, we will not be able to sustain the growth and the success that we've gained. Sometimes many people say, "I'm not going to do this menial job," or "I'm not going to do that because it's beneath me," or "my goal is to go in a different direction." And sometimes that makes sense. But if we don't know the ins and outs of every single thing about our life, or even about our personality, about how we're going to react in certain situations, or how we're going to respond when someone says something or does something to us, well, we're really not going to be well balanced when it does come for us to be in a position of leadership, or in a position that may potentially be in the public eye. I know many other people who often will think, "Well, I don't really know how to get to the end result." They focus so much on what that looks like that they don't realize that what they can do right this second helps them move closer to that journey. Sometimes it can be a very, very small thing, as simple as creating your workstation, creating that space for yourself. And what I mean by that is just simply this. When you come home, already have your workstation set up, so you don't have to set it up and put it together, because that actually takes away from the creativity that you have. If you're an artist, have your sketch pad or easel ready. If you're a musician, have your instrument tuned and already ready for you so that once you get home, you can record or you can compose. If you're an author, have your manuscript in your computer already. And there are many, many other types of things that you can take that philosophy and implement it today. Because if we think too far ahead, we won't really realize that what we do right this second to prepare for the next moment in our life and the one right after that, then we'll actually never gain any forward momentum at all. We just get simply stuck in the end result and not realize that there's so many small little things we can do every moment to get us closer and closer. I've shared this analogy before in the past. If I'm going from LA and I'm going to drive to New York City and I'm driving at night, well, I know that I'm going to get there, but all I really have in front of me is maybe 50, 60 feet out in front of me from where the car's lights are, to really show me the road, show me the path. That's the same type of concept. When we focus on the journey of it, in other words, when we focus on what's right in front of us, that gives us the ability and understanding to say, "Oh, now I see a little bit more. Let me do a little bit more." And that is how we grow closer and closer to who we want to be and the success that we're looking for. You'll find that most people who are really successful really struggled and often, quote unquote, failed all throughout their life and through many ventures that they were in. But that's how they learned. They learned how to change something. They learned how to slightly pivot their perception. And with a lesson along the way, that's how they become successful. You are no different. I'm no different. It's a wonderful thing. So when we focus specifically on the journey itself, what you're learning right this second, what are you implementing right this second in your life, that's going to get you closer and closer to that magnificent, successful life that you're looking for. Remember, it's about the journey, not the destination.
Did you know I have a YouTube channel? That's actually how Lifeology started. I have well over 155 episodes that I've created specifically for you. I do know that many people struggle with listening to a full 30-minute show. So these episodes are about 3 minutes long. Each episode will give you a practical tool or technique that you can practice daily to help you simplify and transform your spirit, mind, and body. Simply go to my website, jamesmillerlifeology.com, or go to YouTube and search for my name, James Miller Lifeology. Ann Havenwood is a serial entrepreneur and regarded as a top authority on digital marketing, email marketing, and online publishing business strategies. Ann has been named in the top 50 must-follow women entrepreneurs for 2017 by the Huffington Post. She has also been called Chief Sexy Boss. It's a nickname from her Amazon bestseller book, Sexy Boss: How Women Are Beating the Big Boys. Ann now is a radio podcast host of her show, The Win, where she shares her incredible story of success and loss as an entrepreneur and her true happiness in a completely compelling and vulnerable way that audiences can relate to and always learn from. So welcome to my show, Ann.
Thank you.
Yes, it's such a pleasure to have you here. You know, when I was reading all the information you sent me, you have done so many amazing things that I can't wait for you to share your inspirational story. And of course, we're definitely going to talk about your podcast, The Win. So once again, thank you for being a guest today. So give us a little bit of background as far as this serial entrepreneur, this strategist. I mean, like I said, you've done so much. How did that even come about?
You know, James, I think that my story kind of starts where a lot of people's stories start, which is I was doing what I call everything I was supposed to be doing. I go to college and get a job at the big company, at a Fortune 500 company, and that's how life was supposed to go. That was it.
Yeah.
And I did that. I worked for a big company called SBC Global, which is huge.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
You've heard of that? It's kind of big. Now they've been spun up and whatnot, but this is back in the late 90s. And I was working for them in outside sales, business to business sales, which is an interesting story by itself because I was young. I was 25. And the average person in my office was 40. But long story short, I basically was number one in the country, sales rep. I did very well my fourth year there. And I thought, oh, this is exciting. I'm going to get like another promotion or I just thought, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Sure.
I make a lot of money. They give me like a little and we're all happy. But long story short, I got fired.
Oh my gosh.
After they gave me what I call the pat on the head, I was hoping for a Rolex, but I got like a pat on the head. And like a pink Cadillac. I'm just kidding. But I didn't get that, and I got pat on the head. And then a couple weeks later, I got fired and I was really confused, And this is a whole story around this. But the main thing is I really realized all I knew was I didn't want that again. That was it. Sometimes life is simple. You're not sure where to go. You just know, like, not that.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of what happened. And I ended up being at my girlfriend's house about 6 months later because I didn't get a job for a while. I didn't know what to do.
That's so hard. We definitely want to talk about the emotional aspect of that, but go ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, just, quick kind of fun. It's a fun little story. People always like it. As I was sitting in my girlfriend's couch, she'd just gotten married and her fiance / husband, I guess, was flipping through the channel on a Sunday. And he stopped at this infomercial and it said, "Do you want to control your life? Do you want to, make money?" And I'm like, yes, I had no clue what else they were saying. And they're like, "Come to this seminar tomorrow at 1:00 at this hotel room." And I'm like, write it down. Not telling my friend, my girlfriend. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going home tomorrow. I'm like running over to this hotel the next day. And I'm walking in, not telling anybody. And I sit down and it's a 3-hour pitch or 2.5-hour pitch. And they basically selling me a seminar for $3,000, long story. And I didn't have that money. And then they said the magic words. They said, "It's only $1,000 for your spouse." And I nudged the guy next to me, didn't know his name. And I'm like, "Can I be your spouse?" He's like, "Sure. What's your name?" So we go to the back of the room and I'm totally lying, different last names, different. The guys knew, right? But it was $1,000. So long story short, the company was like, "What's your deal? We know you're lying, but you're interesting. You're pretty, you really know what you want. What's your deal?" I ended up working for that company, moving to Orlando, and they taught people how to buy and sell houses. And so I started my first real estate investing company.
Wow.
That's kind of like how it all
What a serendipitous. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so random in the sense if he just happened to see this infomercial and then
Yeah.
literally rolled out that way. That's amazing.
I actually ended up, the company redid the commercial a couple years later, and I was one of the people on the infomercial.
Oh, really?
That was cool. And I had like cousins like, why is Heather on an infomercial? Like, why are you up at 3 a.m.? But I mean, I actually ended up being on their B-roll infomercial a couple years later. It's
That
kind of
is
a fun story.
hysterical. That's what I really do like that story. That's great.
That's how I became an entrepreneur. I don't think entrepreneurship. I don't think you go after finding entrepreneurship. I think entrepreneurship finds you.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
a journey.
yeah, and I really agree with that. I know for me, one of the things when I made my rollout or change once, because I have still a practice up in DC, which I once a month for a couple of days I go up there and I see patients. But for me, when I made the shift for myself, the foundational piece for my change was I want to be location independent. I want to do what I'm doing, whatever that may be. I want to do it if I want to go to London, if I want to go to the beach, if I want to do this, I want to do that. And so when I really started to map that out for myself, just kind of like you, I don't want to feel this way anymore. So that's going to be kind of the foundational piece. For me, the rollout was I want to be location independent. And then everything just started to fall into place. So I think that's one of the things and people don't really know what they want to do per se, but if they know what resonates with them. For me, I want to be location independent. For you, you don't want to feel this way anymore. So that is gives that people to say, oh, okay, well then what can I do if I'm location independent? How does that make sense? And that's when I think people, I don't want to say it's as easy as that, but that's how people can really start to formulate what the next step is in their life when they know kind of what they do want and what they don't want based off of a feeling.
Absolutely. Because I think at that time, I was 25, 26, so all my friends were like, well, just go get another job. Like that seemed like the obvious thing to do. But it was kind of like, yeah, I don't want to build something again because in this B2B world, I pretty much built my own little company. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
They gave me the product, but it was like, up to you. You build it. So I felt like I built this and they just like one day took it away from me. And I just felt like, I don't want that again. And that's all I knew. I didn't know what to do. It's not like I had, a mentor or a mastermind or any of that. It was just like, well, I don't want that. And then I just kind of hung out for a while.
And then all of a sudden you're on a late night infomercial.
That's right.
That's so funny.
That's right.
So as you kind of roll through your own life and all these different successes that you've had, I mean, how has that gone? How is that for you when you reflect back on that time in your life when you felt that way? And now, with the juxtaposition between then versus now, what comes out of that when you think about it?
Well, back then I was very scared because all my quote unquote friends are, people in my life at the time had jobs and they were doing well and they were moving up. And by the way, the time frame was like 98, 99, 2000, then 9/11 happened. A lot of people lost their jobs. So there was a lot of like turmoil and I felt like I was going against the grain a lot. I felt like I was doing what I wasn't supposed to be doing. My mom one time called me in panic. I mean, it's totally out of love. It's your parents, right? But I remember I answered the phone and she's like, oh my God, I just heard you're going to be an entrepreneur. What are you doing? Like, she totally freaked on me. I said, well, first of all, who told you? Right? That was like, who in the face? She's like, your uncle. And I'm like, well, he's an entrepreneur. What is he upset about? And then, she's like, but I found my mother's very Southern. She's a very Southern woman and from Arkansas, Hot Springs. So she's got the Southern accent, right? She's like, well, honey, I found a job for you. It's $8 an hour and you're a secretary at a manufacturing company in Hope, Arkansas. You should come down here. It's got benefits. I'm just like, mother, I'm making like 20 grand a month doing, oh my God, you're gonna die. It's just, but
that's hysterical.
You know what I mean? But that was what I was moving through was like not only my own fear, but that's generational fear and family stuff and like, what are you doing? And I had my uncle going, now your mother told me to call you. I don't think I'm like, but you're an entrepreneur. Like, oh, that's me. I'm a man. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? So it was, I'd move against not only my own personal stuff, then I had to move through generational conversations. Move through, oh, I'm a woman, that's not what I'm supposed to do. So there's been that for 15 years of constant some kind of conversation I had to move through, and it wasn't really till I hit rock bottom. I actually went through massive bankruptcy and foreclosure. Then I was really questioning one of that $8 an hour job.
I'm sure.
I really realized that it was not a destination. It was a journey. And once I got that entrepreneurship wasn't about a destination, which corporate world is. Corporate world's like, be here for 22.5 years and you get a retirement and then, right? So in entrepreneurship, if you think like that, you won't do well.
Mm-hmm.
You have to unleash and completely let go of that entire mindset.
Well, because before you did what you were supposed to do, quote unquote.
Correct.
You did to the corporate, you went all that, and it didn't work out. So if you use that same modality or mentality with something that's your rollout or there's something that you're doing, well, if you know it didn't work before, you have to then reframe that and rework it to a degree that if it's your lifestyle, your mentality, your personality, your all, if you will, your essence of who you are. And then that's how it morphs and changes. And, one of the things I actually did a show about this a couple of weeks ago in the sense of if we don't grow and develop for what the need is of the industry, the need is for ourselves, and we get stuck, well, then we are going to quote unquote fail because we're not developing and growing based off of what is happening right this second and then what's happening the next second.
Counterintuitive.
Yes.
And what you just described is death in corporate world.
Yes.
Do not change. Do not develop. Do not go beyond what your job is to be. And if you do, then you will either get fire canned or ostracized.
Yes.
Which that is corporate world. And in our world, if you don't morph and grow and expand, you will be left.
Yes.
Which I think is more in reality to humanistic. Because think of back in let's go caveman days, If you didn't continue to grow your man skills on learning to hunt the next
it's true.
thing,
That's a great point.
you were going to die. If you stayed small and just under the rules, you were eventually not going to eat, right? It's like kind of on that scale, right? So I think that entrepreneurship is more in alignment with being a human being than it is a prisoner. And I don't mean that negative.
No, I get that, yeah.
It's just like the difference in the concept. Because I remember when I was in corporate America, I was taking courses in the course, Dale Carnegie, all these mass sales courses because they pay for them. So I was like, oh my God. So they were like, whoa. They were kind of like, why are you don't buck the system, Heather. Yeah. Don't buck the system. And I'm like, well, isn't the system designed to be bucked? So
yeah, of course.
That's how I see it now. But in particular structures, that can be ostracized to grow. Expand.
Yeah, and it's a great point. And I think that just leads to the sense of, upon reflection of that, everything you've overcome makes you the most successful person you can be in this moment because you've learned those lessons. And now in the next moment, whatever you learned in this moment now makes you even more successful because you constantly have that awareness that change, growth, development is going to allow you to reach whatever the next destiny is you have or next goal you have because you've learned all those things along the way.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear more about your podcast.
Thank you. Yeah. So I was sharing you what I call in the green room.
Yeah. And our pre-call, yeah.
I call it the green room because it's like way more fun.
I actually do like that. I may start using that as well.
the green room, because you like actors and actresses. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, I met, Arnold Schwarzenegger in the green room one time. And you always have this visualization that the green room was like amazing.
Yeah.
Food and beer, everything everywhere. And it's like people are just, the green room. It's probably just some little warehouse. But I have a visualization that it's amazing. So in the green room, we were talking about my podcast and how my first podcast back in 2013 called The Sexy Boss Show. You're welcome to find it in the graveyard of iTunes. I think I did 5 episodes of friends that I knew. I put it all up in the same day, and then nothing happened.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
I called the graveyard. So that was my first experience podcasting. No clue what I was doing. So there you go. So I thought podcasting doesn't work. And that's what I thought. And then around 2015, I had a friend of mine reach out to me and say, hey, can I interview you for my podcast? I'm like, sure, what do I do? And I did it. We just had this great conversation because I knew him and we just had this fun conversation. And I guess he posted it. And then a couple weeks later, I got a call for a potential coaching client of $5,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, that's cool. 30 minutes of just talking and I got a client, so to put 2 and 2 together.
As an entrepreneur, yeah. You're like, I see something.
Right. Let's do that. More of that. Right. So I thought, wait a minute, I don't want to start a show again because that didn't work. So let me do what most people do in the TV world, in the acting world, is that actors don't usually become directors and producers until they learn how to act. Right. So I said, I'm going to become an amazing guest and I'm going to focus on guesting. how to get on podcasts, what people want, how do I add value, how do I share my story, not my resume, how can I just really focus on being an amazing guest for you as the host. These are your people. I'm your guest, not only on your show, but also in your home, in front of your people. So how can I add value? So I did that for a year and a half, and I did over 150 episodes.
Oh my gosh, Heather, wow.
I did a lot, yeah. And people kept asking, you start your own show. I'm like, nope, nope. I'm here for you. I'm focused on you. And I promoted. I still do. I'm always a fan. If I'm on your show, I promote, right? Which is, some people don't do that.
Yeah,
and I really focused on just adding as much value as possible and understanding the business. I mean, think about acting. Even Oprah, she didn't start her own show until she was on shows.
That's right. Yes.
For years, she learned the business of TV before she said, I'm ready for my own show. Why do we all not do that? Right. So that was the intention. So coming back to June of 2016, then I was ready and I launched my own show. And in, was it 7 months, 8 months? 8 months, I'm on 45 radio stations.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
iHeart and everything else. I mean, it's just because I had done the work in the background first.
Yes.
And I think people want to skip that step. I didn't buy a course. I didn't do any of that. I said, I'm going to learn by meeting people like you. And I learned a lot from the green room. I would ask them, what do you use? And what are you doing? And I would learn from people that were in the trenches, not a course.
No, I understand.
Not courses out there. I get it. But I'm just saying, learning from people that are in the trenches. It just like in sales back in the SBC Global days or number one. How did I learn how to sell? Because I wasn't taught. I mean, I was not taught anything. I mean, how I was taught is I literally drove around with the top salespeople. I literally became their slacky, whatever. I bought them lunch.
You shadowed them, of course.
Lunch. I shadowed. Yeah. I listened. I went to their sales calls. I just sat there in the corner, listened to everything they said, how they did it. And then we got to drive around. Of course, I asked them 1,000 questions. That's how I learned. So why not same here? And so that's what happened and where we're at today.
That's absolutely phenomenal. And I think you had a really, obviously everything you said was relevant, but I think one of the key nuggets that people can really listen to and really understand in their own life as well is when the dream we have in our heart, sometimes we focus so much on the end stage of whatever that dream is, as opposed to the foundational piece, which gets us there. When we go too fast and don't really absorb, assimilate, internalize whatever we're supposed to do right this second, then just like a foundation for a building, it's not going to last. It's not going to stand, because when you truly understand the heartache and the pain, the joy and the ecstasy of whatever it is in that moment, that's when you appreciate it more. But if strength that comes easy is no strength at all. You have to really understand the nuances and ins and outs of that before you can be that successful person that you want to be. On Facebook and social media, everybody sees, oh, this is my amazing life, but they don't see on the other side of, wow, I just had this incredible, I broke up with someone and I'm heartbroken, whatever those things may be, is they don't see the other side. And so I think that's when people maybe fantasize about it, or it's more fantastical rather, as far as this is how my life is going to be, but don't realize that it's not always what you think, because you have to learn and grow and develop and feel everything and learn everything before you get to the end result.
And I'll add to that, James, is that just like, people can relate to actors, I think a lot. And people see big time actors, big time Hollywood, and they think, oh, well, I want to be like that. So I'm never going to go to a, what do they call them, audition, whatever, something big. Yeah. And you're making a mistake, because you have to understand that actor who's now at where they're at was on TV shows and commercials and some really stupid shampoo commercial back in the 70s that you don't even know about. They were yes. I mean, I think of Tom Hanks. I mean, he started literally in a sitcom. I remember seeing that sitcom in the 70s, right? So he started this really stupid sitcom.
I remember.
Right? And he wore these really stupid, really small shorts, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And I mean, look where he's, look at
Tom Hanks, yeah.
But he was willing to say yes. He was never a no. He was like, I'll try it. Yes. I mean, yes. Forrest Gump, how he got that was pretty phenomenal. It was completely separate than what he's ever done before. People are like, oh, don't do it. It's going to ruin your career. So you have to be willing to say yes. And that was one thing I take on in podcasting. People call me, hey, this podcast wants to interview you. They talk about NFL. Well, obviously I know nothing about NFL, but I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I had a great, it was a great show. It was a lot of fun. I was like, well, look, only guys, I only like the Cowboys. Anything else, I'm like, let's not talk about it. They're like, oh, that's funny. Let's talk about the Cowboys then. I'm like, great. So we had this whole conversation about the Cowboys. So, I mean, be willing to say yes.
Mm-hmm. Be malleable. Be
yes,
exactly. When I think, when you're too regimented and too rigid,
yes.
you're never going to grow never going to grow and succeed. You're never going to be a successful, I shouldn't say never, but it's very rare that you'll be a successful entrepreneur, because that's not how life works. Life is full of changes and things just develop in such a very serendipitous or extemporaneous way that things, you have to be able to be open to say, okay, I'm going to try it. I'm going to do it. And, sometimes it works out great. Other times it doesn't, but it's a wonderful life learning experience for you to say, okay, kind of going back to what you said before, I don't want to feel this way anymore. So that particular thing didn't work for me. Maybe it didn't work just this particular time. Let me think about it later. Let me try it again later. Or maybe no, let me try it again later. But you won't know that until you actually put yourself out there.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
So with the show, The Win, what type of guests do you interview?
So the things I look for are people that have some kind of entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they built something, or they tried to build something, or they're in the middle of building something, right? So, or they just have a passion for a particular niche. Maybe they're experts in health and wellness, but maybe they haven't built a business around that. Maybe, so it just depends. But what's interesting is I'm always open for more women. And I tell people that come, they say to me, hey, the bookers and whatnot. I'm like, hey, do you have any women? They're like, no, I won. I'm like, why not? What is that? So I would like to promote more women.
Uh-huh.
I just think that right now it's not as many people, experts out there that are willing to get on shows. And so I actually created a course about teaching people how to be a guest, because I feel like one of the challenges with that, they just don't know how.
Yeah.
I always tell people don't want to hear about your resume. They want to hear your story.
Yes.
They want to hear, how do you share your story? And one of the challenges, I think, specifically with women, is they have a hard time sharing their story for whatever reason, a confidence, or they feel like, oh, I don't want to brag, all that stuff kind of.
Yeah.
So I was like helping them get through that so they can start to share their story and be the voice of their company, not just the structure of their company, but how to be the voice of the company.
Well, it's same. Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to an entrepreneur, like for me, James Miller Lifeology, I am James Miller Lifeology.
Yes.
I am the brand of that. That is when people see me, they think of my show, or they think of the brand of that. And so it's the same type of thing when we separate from that, and it's not always the same. You are your company. You are the face of your company. You are the brand of your company. So I think that's a wonderful point, that many people don't realize that my personality, my style, everything about me is all interwoven into James Miller Lifeology. From the cheesy jokes I may say, or the that's wonderful, those silly things that I say all the time, because that's me. And so that's just when you can really allow your personality and all the things that in your life to come out in every area, then that's how you can be the most relatable and audible to your listeners, or to your guests, or to the hosts of the show you're on, is because you're being an authentic person, an authentic entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I find that the I would, excuse my language, the worst guests that, bad, or most of them are great. Yeah. But the ones that aren't as great, let me say that way, they're professional speakers.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah,
traveling the country, and they're doing, they've been doing professional speaking for a long time. What's funny about that is I find that they're not the best. Here's why. And again, I come from the speaking industry, so look, I get it. Is that they're kind of used to a monologue, So James, introduce me. Okay, then leave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Smush. And you're like, this is a conversation.
Exactly. I totally know what you mean, because it is that way, and it doesn't feel, at least for me, it doesn't feel as authentic. And I'm thinking, well, I could have just gave you a question and then go through each question, and that's it. And that's not how my show works. That's not how your show works. So I mean, it's the same thing. Wonderful. That's so great that works for many other people in different shows. But for your show, for my show, that just doesn't fly, because we just, I like
conversation.
Yeah.
I had one person, let's say Neil famous person, come on the show, and he said whatever he said, or they said whatever they said, and I tried, and I could tell he didn't want to interrupt them, right? And I finally was like, okay, this is my show, and I'm going to interrupt you. okay, and he's like, all right, all right. And I'm like, okay, forget it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, forget about it. Yeah.
but it's an interesting, I find that the ones that are the best are the ones that are truly authentic about their journey and their story.
Yeah.
Not a lot of ego in it. And they really just want to share what's going on in their life, why they started the company, what happened, what really got them to where they're at, the challenges they went through, the no's that they went through. I remember there's a movie out called Joy.
I thought that was an amazing movie. Oh my gosh. So
and
powerful.
That was not about like she created this mop, okay, that literally she's a multimillionaire at this point, and many other products, but it was the story of her family and the no's and the pullback and the challenge she had to come up against with her family and all the stuff going on there and her ex-husband, all this stuff. That was what the juice was.
Yes, and I think that resonated so well. I mean, like with me. Anyway, I'm sorry I cut you off because I'm so excited about the movie.
Do not cut me.
I know, right? Well, Heather, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. If my listeners would like to find out more information about you and about your podcast and all the amazing things you're doing, where would they find your information online?
So they can go to heatherhavenwood.com. That's heatherhavenwood.com. Or as a free gift to you and your listeners, I have my book out called Sexy Boss. The Empowerment of Women is Changing the Rule Book for Money, Success, and Sex and Beating the Big Boys. And I want to give of your listener 3 free chapters of my audiobook. So I wrote my book and then I put it in audio and Audible. And then get 3 free chapters of my audiobook by one of 2 ways. They can text the word sexy to 72000. So again, that's text the word sexy to 72,000 on their smartphone. If they're in the United States, if they're not in the United States, unfortunately it won't work. So you'll have to go to sexybossinc.com, sexybossinc.com.
Excellent. Well, Heather Ann, thank you so much for being a guest on my show today. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you, James.
I also want to thank you, the listener, for tuning in today. Please subscribe to this radio show through whichever portal you joined with us today, or please go to my website where you may sign up for my free newsletter, watch my YouTube episodes, read the articles I've written specifically for you, or you may enroll in the Lifeology Academy where you can take self-directed courses which will help you simplify and transform your spirit, mind, and body. If you'd like to personally work with me, be a guest on, or advertise on this show, simply visit jamesmillerlifeology.com. Be sure to follow me on all social media platforms under the name James Miller Lifeology, except for Twitter, which is James M. Lifeology. Once again, thank you so much for your support, and I'll talk to you soon.